I grew up in a house with like a real richness of books. My dad was an English professor, and him and my mom are both very avid readers. So there was a bookshelf in every room. It was like my own personal library in a lot of ways, where there was always something for me to read. If I ever wanted any book on almost anything, I could find it. And what we didn't have, there's many public libraries nearby. So I guess collecting books was always very normalized for me. So as soon as I could start buying books of my own or having books bought for me, I guess that's the point that I started collecting. I think books that are by Jewish people and that are about Judaism are like, or that have some element of Jewish life in them, whether it's secular or religious or cultural, whatever. Those are the most clear-cut Jewish books. But I wonder too if books by Jewish authors that don't really mention anything about Judaism are those Jewish books. And I think they can be. I think the influence of somebody's culture is often present in maybe even like very slight and but yet traceable ways. I was also thinking about how there are scholarly works about, for example, different Jewish languages that could be written by non-Jews. And are those Jewish books? Yes, I would say so. And is every book that talks about Judaism a Jewish book? I think it depends on the author's intent. It depends on the research and preparation that's gone into it, and what kind of consultation has made it possible. My Jewish library is always growing. I have a lot of books about Jewish art, about Jewish folk art. I have language books, books about Yiddish culture, books about Judeo-Italian. I have memoirs. I have books in translation. Fiction, nonfiction. There's a lot. I love being able to reference something at a moment's notice. I find that often after I've read a book, particularly a book that's quite meaningful to me, although sometimes, you're surprised that like you didn't think a book had a major influence on you, and then you find yourself thinking about it later. But it's very rare that I read a book once. Something will stick with me and I'll want to go back. It's also so nice to me to be able to share books with people. And I consider my library a very open resource to my friends and acquaintances and family. I chose a book that is it's maybe a bit of an obvious pick. Everybody really loves this guy, Primo Levi, an Italian Jew who survived the Holocaust and who was interred at Auschwitz. And he wrote a trilogy that is very meaningful and important to me, and I'm sure countless other people. So the first book is about his experiences in the camp from sort of the moment that he's taken until the moment of liberation of the camps. The second one, which is the one that I'm going to read from, is about his journey from Auschwitz back to Torino, where he's from. There are a lot of books about the Holocaust and about the experience of being imprisoned, and those books are really important. But this book, I think, is such an interesting snapshot of what happens immediately after. There's this passage where He's still in Poland, and this is about halfway through the book, so it really is a very long, circuitous journey that he takes home. But in this passage, him and some other people, some are Jews, some are not, are trying to make their way home, and for the time being, they're stuck in a Polish train station. There are no trains coming. They're going to have to spend the night in this train station, and he's with his friend Cesare, and they see two young women about their age speaking Yiddish, and he decides to go over to them. Daylight disappeared with extreme slowness, at first pink, then violet, then gray, followed by the silvery splendor of a warm moonlit night. We were smoking and talking gaily. Two young girls, dressed in black, were sitting next to us on a wooden box. They were speaking together, not in Russian, but in Yiddish. "Do you understand what they're saying?" asked Cesare. "A few words. Up and at 'em then, see if they'll play." That night, everything seemed easy to me, even understanding Yiddish. With unaccustomed boldness, I turned to the girls, greeted them, and, trying to imitate their pronunciation, asked them in German if they were Jewish, and declared that we four were also Jewish. The girls, they were perhaps 16 or 18 years old, burst out laughing. "Ihr sprecht kein Yiddish, ihr seid ja kein Jiden. You do not speak Yiddish, so you cannot be Jews." In their language, the phrase amounted to rigorous logic. Yet, we really were Jews, I explained, Italian Jews. Jews in Italy and in all Western Europe do not speak Yiddish. This was a great novelty for them, a comic oddity, as if someone had affirmed that there are Frenchmen who do not speak French. I tried to recite to them the beginning of the Shema, the basic Hebrew prayer. Their incredulity grew weaker, but their merriment increased. Who had ever heard Hebrew pronounced in so ridiculous a way? This moment is, it's so cute and so sweet, this interaction, but it also does have this, in hindsight, this moment of gravity and sadness that there are certain kinds of Jewishness that are increasingly invisible and that were really invisibilized in the Holocaust, and that continue to be to this day in some cases. But I love this moment of him speaking his in his words, his not very good German, and trying to say I am Jewish. I know I'm speaking German, but I heard you speaking Yiddish, and I don't speak Yiddish. But and there are a lot of moments in his books of this sort of Jews together, not sharing a common language, but finding a way to communicate and finding a way to commune with each other. I'm a very strong believer in the power of oral tradition and storytelling. It's so it's so special, and I think in many cases crucial to have a written record, because what happens if in the case of Judeo-Italian, where the speakers are so the numbers dwindle so significantly, it's really special to have these texts that can lead us back and that can connect us.